Another Dooley Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome into another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Today we've got a great show for you. Andrea Adelson is going to join us. We'll talk to her about the latest with Florida State and what's going on with them, and about her alma mater as well, University of Florida. We'll get into that. Coach Spurrier on Monday. Next Thursday, Ahmad Black is going to join us for a segment. And we'll just keep going, keep getting good guests, and appreciate everybody who is involved in our sponsorships, and everybody who, especially our great producer, Zach, back there. Man, I have got to get a haircut, don't I? It's really getting ugly. I'm going for that Jim Halpert look. And, maybe I just put it all in front so I can, but no, it needs to be cut. All right, let's get to our Process Service of Gainesville starting five. Brought to you by Process Service of Gainesville, Scott Hart, and the great folks over there. And we appreciate him for being a great sponsor over the years. Let's get to number one on Process Service of Gainesville starting five. And the number one story right now for me is, thank God we're having our 3-day winter. I know I call it a 3-day winter, but usually there's about 9 days of real winter, and we're on day 2 of it right now. It's not that bad, but I'm in shorts, so it's not that bad. But that's why but the point is, it's almost spring seasons, and it already is for gymnastics. Baseball will be starting soon. Softball will be starting soon. I think they'll be pretty good, because football and basketball aren't good, and really disappointing. I thought this basketball team was going to be better, but the 2 losses now, 19 and 18 points in the SEC. Now, I can also look at it this way. They played the 2 best teams in the conference already. There's no doubt about it. To me, Kentucky and Tennessee are the 2 best teams in the conference. There are some really good teams. There are going to be a lot of teams that get in the tournament. South Carolina's going to be tough out. They've already played Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss is as good as in that level. Like, I can see both Kentucky and Tennessee getting the Final Four. So I can look at it that way. But the fact that you played 2 road games in the SEC and you weren't in either one of them is really not a good sign. They've got a lot of problems. And I thought they had addressed them and fixed them, but it's not good. Now, that said, maybe he can get this thing fixed. Maybe he can get it going the right way. I'm not going to give up on him. I still think Todd's a good coach. And I like his interviews really well. I think he does a good job. But the bottom line is, can somebody win something around here? Now, look, I know what happened in golf last year. I know what happened in track last year. I know how close baseball was. It all mattered to us, and it does matter to us. But the front porch is all tattered and has got used bicycles laying on it. And the back porch isn't much better. There's no porch. There's no way to get in right now for Florida, to get into Florida athletics. Now, again, I love softball. I love baseball. I love going to those events. I love going to gymnastics. I love the sports, and I take them as seriously as anything. But we all know the truth, and the truth is, if you're not good in football and basketball, people are not going to think much of you. The greatest thing that ever happened at the University of Florida was not the invention of Gatorade. It was not discovering, well, okay, I'm not going to go that far. It wasn't helping kids who were sick. No, but the greatest thing that ever happened here in terms of sports was that 06-08 run. They could not be any further from that right now. We're only talking about, what are we talking about? 16 years since the last one? That's not that long to have gone to this point. Like, my thing is, I started looking, I'm going, man, I wonder if Florida can not have a losing record in basketball. If they had losing records in football and basketball 2 straight years in both sports, that would not be a good referendum on Scott Strickland's hires. There's no doubt about that. That brings me to number 2 on the process service of Gainesville starting five. I hate to be a downer guy, but I mean, I am where I am right now, and you know me, I'm always going to tell you what I think. But it's going to be interesting to see. All these players are fleeing Alabama because Saban left, and and all the windows that you have a 30-day window to do that, and it's not hard to get in the portal, and nobody wants to stay where they were. But all that goes on. But every time a name comes out, and Jeff Cardozo and I talked about this on the tailgate yesterday, but I wanted to bring it up here too. Every time a big name comes into the portal and you go, oh boy, he looked good in orange and blue, you realize Florida's got no chance to get him. Now, they might get the backup at some school, or they might get a guy from Penn, or they just don't have the NIL ability to do it. That's the A part of it. And the B part of it, to me, is that their brand has taken a big hit. I'm sorry, it's the truth. I think Florida's brand is not quite what it used to be. Like there was a time when it was the number one brand in the country. I don't care who was maybe making more money. They were the number one brand because they were winning it and everything, and they were title town. But Florida's brand has always been pretty good, but right now it's just crippled. They got to get it back. They got to get the brand back. They got to clean the brand up, get it all shiny and new, and put it back out there. Because right now it's just not good. It's not a good brand. But we'll see what happens. Now, all these people getting in the portal from Alabama, if Harbaugh leaves, then you're going to see that happen as well. People are going to jump in the portal. J.J. McCarthy's already declared for the draft. But that is making people say, well, hey, we didn't know this was a problem in college football, these Alabama fans. We had no idea this kind of stuff was going on. We got to put an end to this. So, everybody else has been dealing with it not forever, but for 3 years. And anyway, I do think that there are people who are starting to think the way I have been thinking for a while now. And I think it was Mike Farrell was on the college network today, and he was saying that, it's what I've been saying all along. And I'll get, when Andrea comes on, I'll ask her about it. We need a salary cap for the NIL. It's very simple. And he was saying the same thing that I am coming around to. And that is, there's no point treating these kids like student athletes anymore. They're not. They're athletes. They're getting paid. You could say, well, anybody can work and make. No, these guys are making $300,000 as a freshman. Nobody's making. No, I'm talking about students. Now, maybe Daddy is giving them $300,000, but I don't think that happens very often. It certainly doesn't happen in this house. The point is that if there was a salary cap, we could get more parity. We could know what people are making. There's no transparency. I've talked about that. Okay. But here's the other thing that keeps coming back to me. Who's going to make this rule? Who's going to make this happen? Well, it ain't going to be the conferences. It's not going to be the individual schools, obviously. It's not going to be the NCAA's, as I've said a million times, gumming its food. I don't think they'll be able to do something like that, have a collectively bargained NIL cap. You can't even collectively bargain penalties that they give out. Who's going to do it? I don't know who's going to do it. That's the problem. I think that is the biggest problem. There's two things that I've kind of had an epiphany about today, and that was one of them. That while we all think we have answers, and we all do think we have answers to how to save college football, and I'm going to probably write one of those into 12 things for Gators Wire in a couple of weeks. I'm supposed to do that was my suggestion. We think we have the answers, but who's going to enforce them? Who's going to do it? Who is going to make it happen? Who? I don't know. I don't know who's running college football now. Pretty much nobody is a rudderless ship just sailing through the dark waters. So that was one epiphany I had. And I'm trying to remember what the other one was, but I think I've already forgotten it. I know. When it comes to me, I'll remember it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 3 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. This is what happens when you get old. When you get old, life is forgetting things and a series of visits to doctors. That's what I'm finding out. And boy, I went to one today. It was good news. So for once, I have another one next week, next Thursday, and then Friday. I'm having an operation, minor, but it still is. It's just what happens when you get old, man. It's just what happens. Let's get to number 3, and that is I'm kind of waiting for those other shoes to drop, and they could have dropped while we were doing this or before you got to listen to it. But the Harbaugh and Belichick are the shoes I'm really curious to see where they both end up, or if they end up. Well, we know Belichick's going to be somewhere else. I knew it wasn't going to be Dallas. That is the shoe that dropped this week, really, was McCarthy's coming back. And, I mean, yeah, he can win you 12 games. He can win your division. He can't win a playoff game. I think the problem may be a quarterback, but hey, in a way, I'm glad they kept McCarthy, and I'm glad they're not going to move off Dak, and hopefully they can lose another playoff game because they're not my favorite team. Don't like them at all. But I'm still waiting on the other ones, and that will, again, like when Harbaugh leaves, could start another cycle of openings, and it always filters down to eventually Fresno State had to hire somebody, and I know that Brennan's a really good guy that people have told me about, but I've never met him. But it starts at, if Michigan's got an opening, do they get Brian Kelly, the rumor that's been going around? Then if Brian Kelly goes, who does LSU go? Go get. I don't know, man. It's crazy. It may get still crazier than it has been. So we'll see how that goes. Number 4 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. I was trying to think about this. If I took the 8 teams that are left in the playoffs and the NFL and had to bet on one to win the whole thing, who would it be? And I think it would be Baltimore. However, they're not. I also ranked them myself, just for myself. I was just, well, how would you rank your favorite to least favorite team with what's left? Because I got rid of all my negative rooting. It's, my big negative rooting team is the Cowboys, and if the Giants are there, but of course they hardly ever are. But there is one still alive, and they are 8th, and that is Tampa Bay. Sorry, no offense, Tampa people. I just don't like Tampa Bay. I root against them. Sorry. But my favorite team would be Kansas City. It's still, I like the Chiefs. I just have to turn the sound down so I don't have to hear that stupid tomahawk chop. And Baltimore was like, I think I wrote them down as the 5th favorite. Like, I want Houston to win. So, like, I've kind of, in Green Bay, I've kind of fallen in love with this Jordan. Like, this is what I need to pick a team and stay with it, okay? I need to pick one team and stay with it in the NFL. But it ain't going to be right now because too late. Maybe we'll start next year. But it should be a fun weekend. In a little bit, we'll give you the swamp games of the weekend. And we'll give you all those NFL games and what time they start and what channel they're on. Of course, the Florida game and basketball as well. We'll give you all that on the Swamp Restaurant games of the weekend. Let's get to number 5 on the process service of Gainesville starting 5. Last week, earlier this week, I told you not to be surprised if Brandon Spikes joined the staff in New England. Well, that's not going to happen. Brandon is staying put. He turned it down, and he's going to get his degree, and you could see an announcement coming at some point. He's not going to be on staff, but he's going to be part of the staff, part of the 9 million member staff. But look, Florida did the smart thing. They don't want to lose him. They don't want a guy who bleeds. I don't know that anybody bleeds orange and blue more than he does. And I didn't realize this when he played, how important it was to him. I realized how important playing football was and how important it was to win this game, but how important it was to be a Gator and to come back and still be a Gator and want things to go well for the University of Florida. I mean, he's right up there as far as ambassadors go. So good that he'll be around. So I wanted to make sure that anybody who was, I know I threw that kind of dart out there. Brandon Spikes may be in New England. He could have been in New England. He had a chance to go there. He decided not to. He decided to stay with Florida. So maybe there's the start of a cycle of good things happening for the football program at the University of Florida. That's the beginning of it. That's the story I'm going to tell people. All right. The other story I'm going to tell people is that we need to take a break. And when we come back, Andrea Adelson from ESPN is going to join us. We'll talk a little bit of FSU with her, a little bit about her alma mater, the University of Florida, and whatever else we decide to get into, a little bit about Mike Norvell. It's interesting. I wrote this question down about, and I want to change it before I all of a sudden blurt it out. I was writing her question about Mike Norvell for her, and I wrote it down as Napier. I said, is Napier, and I go, oh, cross that out, write the right name down. You don't want to say that the wrong way. Anyway, I got it right now. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back with more. We'll come back with Andrea Adelson and she'll do a yes, no, way, or maybe with me. Brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak. And also, as is the Zoom link. So can't wait to talk to her. She's been on the show a couple of times before. We love having her. And we'll be back with her after we take this break here on another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the paralegal legal secretary bonus program.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Okay, welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Great pleasure to go to our Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line and bring on Andrea Adelson from ESPN, who does a great job covering the ACC. Because obviously we want to talk about what's going on at Florida State, and eventually I will have a question for her about her alma mater. Apparently we don't play football or basketball anymore, but we're really good in baseball and golf.
You said it, Pat, not me.
Let's start out by this latest filing by the ACC, which included apparently them not being really happy about them allowing a website to put up all the questions they had and everything. It's just it's going to take a while to go through this thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And look, the Florida State knew that there was going to be a fight when they decided to go this route, and the ACC is going to do everything that they can to protect the conference. And here's the bottom line with this, Pat, right? This all goes down to the grant of rights that every team in the ACC signed back in 2013 and then again in 2016. That gives all the media rights to the ACC, right? Florida State decided we're going to challenge that and see if that's a legally binding document. They signed it. They signed it not once, but they signed it twice. And that is essentially the ACC's argument in this latest filing is you not only signed it, but you've earned millions of dollars as part of this deal that you've signed. And now suddenly, wait a minute, you're not good for you anymore. So that to me is a very compelling argument that the ACC has. But there's a reason that Florida State decided to file this suit of their own in the state of Florida, because there are antitrust laws in this state that they can use to their advantage that says signing this contract, being a part of this contract means that our ability to do business has now been restricted. And so they're going to be using that argument here in Florida court. But as you know, and your listeners know, there's a lawsuit here in which Florida State filed. And now there's the lawsuit that the ACC filed in North Carolina, which is where the ACC is located and where the grant of rights are located. So trying to determine which court is going to have jurisdiction, who's going to have say over what, that's another big part of this challenge as well. So you've got these dueling lawsuits and dueling arguments. And the only way that this is going to be resolved, at least at this point, is going through the court system, because why would the ACC just let Florida State go?
No, they wouldn't. The biggest question I think a lot of people have, because I think all of us believe the ACC is within their rights, but we also understand how FSU feels, and it's almost kind of like fun to watch them go at it each other. But I can't think FSU would be doing this and be willing to pay what's still going to be, I would think, hundreds of millions of dollars to get out of this thing if they didn't have a landing spot already, if nobody had ever talked to them or they hadn't talked to anybody. I mean, have you heard that they have talked to either one of the two Power 2 conferences?
Well, it's not about whether the people there have talked. As you guys know, there's intermediaries that are generally involved in all sorts of stuff so that you can have plausible deniability. But as far as I know, Florida State does not have a landing spot right now. Their decision to do this is so that they know once and for all whether they will have an opportunity to get out of this grant of rights the next time there's a chance at conference realignment to find a different landing spot in one of the Power 2 conferences that everybody's calling now the Big Ten and the SEC, right? For right now, nobody can get out of the grant of rights because nobody's challenged it. And the grant of rights, just so everybody is reminded, runs through 2036. We just started 2024. So that's another 12 years where you are giving your media rights to the ACC. And there's also an exit fee penalty, which is roughly 150, 120, between 120 and 150 million dollars. That's another thing that Florida State is challenging as a part of the lawsuit, basically saying that that is an unfair penalty for any school that's trying to do business to have to pay. And they use several examples. They signed it.
You read it right there.
Correct. And that is going to be the ACC's argument. But there has been discussion since Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12 to join the SEC. What was that? 3 summers ago. Okay. Right. There's been discussion about whether anybody's going to challenge the grant of rights in court. And the first discussion was whether Texas and Oklahoma would do that to get out of the Big 12 early to join the SEC early. Well, both those schools decided we're not going to do that. They paid a penalty to get out 1 year early to join the SEC now starting this upcoming football season. The reason it's important for the ACC is because there's so many years left on this contract. And if you're Florida State, and you're starting to see the dollar values for your rival school, Florida, and what they're going to be getting in the SEC, and you're starting to see, well, in the Big 12, their contract is roughly similar to the ACC. And oh, by the way, they get to renegotiate their contract before the ACC gets another shot at it because theirs is up in 36, right?
Right.
And who's in the Big 12 right now? Is that UCF? Is that another state school? So you start planning out all of these scenarios about, well, where's this going to leave us at Florida State if we're going to be falling all these millions upon millions of dollars behind, and there's no room inside the ACC contract to get more money from ESPN? They're feeling stuck. And naturally, what are you going to do about that? Are you just going to say, oh, well, we signed the grant of rights? Well, you're going to try and find a legal argument to get yourself out of it so that you can continue to be on par with what your state rivals are doing and also with what the regional rivals are doing. So, that's why they've decided to go ahead and challenge it to see if they have a winning legal argument. And if they do, that obviously opens up more avenues for them when it comes time to figuring out what is that next realignment domino that's going to fall.
I'm curious why Miami hasn't joined this lawsuit, because, I mean, you're in the same state, you're in the same conference. You probably want out just as much as FSU does.
Well, so early on, when there was discussion about what the long-term future of the ACC was going to look like, after not only Texas and Oklahoma left, but then the Big Ten decided they were going to go after USC and UCLA, there was a small group of schools. It was Florida State, it was Miami, it was Clemson, North Carolina, Virginia, and then ultimately NC State and Virginia Tech were looped into that because of their sister state institutions. Right. And they had discussions among themselves about the grant of rights and what needs to be done and whether there was a possible legal challenge. So it's not as if Miami hasn't looked at it. They have looked at it. Florida State is the first one out because they believe they've put together a compelling legal argument to make in this state. And quite frankly, because of the length of the contract that's left on it, right? 12 and a half years are left on this contract. I think some schools saw that and said, well, is it worth it to do it now? I mean, there's still 12 and a half years left on this contract, and it doesn't appear as if there are dominoes that are going to fall in realignment within the next year. So didn't feel like there was maybe a sense of urgency for some of the schools. But for Florida State, there's an increasing sense of urgency because of what happened with the playoff. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the playoff is the number one reason why they did it. They'd already been looking at doing this, right? But getting left out of the playoff and feeling as if the ACC's position among the conferences had been devalued enough that left them out. Forget about the Jordan Travis injury. Nobody was making an argument for the ACC based on the strength of schedule to get Florida State into that playoff, right? So from their vantage point, they felt getting left out gave them the opportunity to speed this up so they can figure out, well, what is an end game here? What is a potential exit route? Maybe some of those other schools like a Miami don't feel that sense of urgency right now, but I will tell you, there's one key difference here between Florida State and Clemson, because Clemson feels that same sense of urgency that Florida State does. But their public records, public meeting laws are not the same as they are here in the state of Florida. In the state of Florida here, these universities and these board meetings are required to operate in the sunshine, which means they have to give public notice every time they have a meeting. Well, in South Carolina, the Clemson Board of Trustees doesn't have to do that. They've been meeting about this themselves behind closed doors. They don't have to give public notice. So Florida State is sitting here willing to be the program that's taking all the hits and being out there publicly when they know for a fact there are other schools in their own conference that have had similar conversations about doing the same exact thing. Now, does this mean Clemson is about to do something? I don't know. I think a lot of the schools in the ACC that have thought about challenging the grant of rights are content for right now to sit back and let Florida State take all the heat and see what happens with Florida State.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because we got this question on the radio yesterday and I didn't really have an answer. FSU was having real money trouble, and that was the whole Jimbo wanted things. They weren't going to be able to give them to him. That's one reason he was leaving. Now it seems like they're flush with money. Is this just because of success, or is there did they just get better organized in terms of their NIL, their donors, and everything like that?
Yeah, it's a great question because a couple of years back, my colleague David Hale and I wrote this in-depth story about the fall of Florida State football. And this was around 2020, 2021, something like that.
Right.
And one of their biggest,
when I was involved,
yeah, one of the biggest issues was their financial problems. And they have traditionally had a dysfunctional relationship with Seminole Boosters, in which Seminole Boosters has wanted to do one thing with the finances, but football wanted to do something else. And the administration was caught in the middle. And ultimately, Seminole Boosters won a lot of the financial fights, which is a large reason why Jimbo Fisher left Florida State, because he wanted an indoor practice facility. Right. And Seminole Boosters was like, well, you know, we just gave you money for a new locker room, and we just gave you new money for this. You don't need and by the way, Florida State still doesn't have a standalone football facility. All their stuff is inside the stadium. They're working on it, but it's not built yet, right? So once they had a changing of the guard at Seminole Boosters, their current athletic director, Michael Alford, came in as the CEO of Seminole Boosters. That was his first job at Florida State. And so his primary responsibility in learning about why are we not all on the same page here, right? What is happening that football isn't getting what they need from the booster organization? His chief order of business was to A, fix that relationship, but then B, try and help fix the financials. And then once he became the athletic director and they brought in somebody else to run Seminole Boosters, and then they had a change in the president's office, bringing in Richard McCullough, who came from Harvard, you started to see now alignment from the president's office to the athletic department to Seminole Boosters and to the board of trustees. That alignment has not been there at Florida State in, decades, and I would put an S on that. So because now there's alignment, and because everybody at Florida State saw how far football had fallen, they were able to sort of restructure their organization to be able to focus on the financials that could help build the Florida State football program back up. And so they do have more donors now to Seminole Boosters. They've restructured things inside the athletic department from a financial perspective that has allowed football to get more money. And there's also a reason why Michael Alford has been fighting for uneven revenue distribution from the ACC, because now that football went undefeated and won an ACC championship, guess what? They get to make more money because he fought and won that battle. Are they perfect? No, they're not perfect at all. In fact, they've looked at private equity to try and help finance some of the other things and projects that they want to get done. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they've got all the money in the world. And now that they're paying Mike Norvell more money, and now that they're in this legal battle, now that they've committed even more resources to football, that's going to take more money. But certainly from where they were before Michael Alford's arrival to Seminole Boosters to the athletic director's chair, they're in far better financial shape than they were.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, really. We need to play yes, no, or maybe with Andrea before we go. We got 3 questions for her. She'll answer them yes, no, or maybe, and she's allowed to expound as much as she wants. It's brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak, street dining done the right way. Go there, say you watched or listened to another duly noted podcast, and get free fries with your order. All right, number 1, Florida State is in the playoffs, the expanded playoffs next year. They're losing a lot.
They're losing a lot. I'm going to say no. They lost too much.
They are losing a lot. And you, I mean, look, I believed FSU should have gotten in. Okay, that's my belief, and you know how I feel about FSU. But without Travis, that team wasn't that good, and so now you're going to go, well, he ain't coming back. So that's where I am with that. Number 2, NIL will eventually have a salary cap.
So I'm going to say no on that, because I think eventually the players are going to be employees and earn salaries. So I guess maybe there's like a 2-part way of looking at that eventually there'll be a salary cap before they become employees, when that's, decided by the courts. But ultimately, I feel like that's where things are going to land. They're in front of Congress today, so I'm sure Congress will have all the answers, Pat.
Yeah, and it's not like Congress only has 2 wars they have to worry about. I mean, it's not like there's anything else going on.
Nothing else going on.
And finally, number 3 on yes, no, or maybe, Florida, your school is having a branding issue right now because the brand, we had a long talk about this on the radio yesterday. The brand has taken a lot of beating. And when players get in the portal, I go, well, they're not coming to Florida. Losing is a disease, like the guy said in The Natural. It feels like they can't get anything going the right way.
Well, here's what I would say, and you could have asked me this. We could have had a 20-minute conversation about this because I have a lot of thoughts on it. What is Florida's football brand right now? If you were selling Florida's football brand, what is it? You knew what it was when Steve Spurrier was there, right? You knew what it was when Urban Meyer was there. And you sort of knew what it was when Dan Mullen was there, quite frankly.
Right. He did.
What is it now? Seriously, what is it? What are you selling? And I understand everything that Florida's trying to say. We're building and Billy's building, and it takes a while. You got to lay the foundation and look at, how long it took Florida State and all this. But even in the early years with Mike Norvell, you knew what he was building toward. You knew what he was trying to get done. I don't know what Florida is building toward. And quite frankly, Pat, the fact that Florida is boring, okay? Florida is boring football now. That makes me sad in my heart. As a graduate, as a student who was there when Spurrier was there, who enjoyed a lot of those great memories of what that team and that offense looked like. I mean, there are 3 Heisman Trophy winners outside the stadium who all played quarterback at Florida. And now, what's the identity of the quarterback position? What's the identity of the offense? So I agree with you that they have a branding issue because they don't have a football brand right now.
Yeah, no, that's where they are. I mean, that's I can't tell you what their brand is, to get people that do good things in the community. And that's great. And I love all that.
Sure.
But you better also win.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You better win games. And when you say Florida's boring, I go, they're hard to watch.
Yeah.
You get into games and you go, I don't want to watch this anymore. But hey, we'll see. We'll see this year. Anyway.
We'll see this year.
Yeah. Hey, it's always great talking to you, Andrea. We appreciate your time as always. Appreciate you. Got anything you need to plug? I know I'm always reading your stuff on ESPN.com.
No, watch all ACC on Mondays on the ACC Network. We're still talking football. We're still talking ACC football. So there you go.
As are we here.
Love it.
Thanks again. We'll be back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
I was driving behind a lady, and very suddenly she moved out of the way. There was a log laying in the road, and when I hit my brakes, I went on top of the log. I had 280 discs. I just haven't been the same since. Jeffrey Meldon fought for me all the way. Him and his team really went there for me. Throughout the whole lawsuit, he made sure that my bills was paid. It was never no whenever I called him and asked him for something.
Call Meldon Law right now.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Dome Gator Studios. And of course, Meldon Law also brings you Coach Spurrier every Monday. Well, he'll be on here next Monday. We look forward to having him. He was great. I thought he was really interesting on this past Monday, 3 days ago. We had him on just talking about everything, the coaches and everything. I thought he was really good. He's always good. And if you're missing it, you can go catch up on him. Any of the sites, Apple, YouTube, everywhere, the platforms that are out there, you can find previous episodes of him, and they're always fun talking to him. And again, we get good guests, great guests, I think. I think we get the best guests in America. Well, we don't get like Conan guests, Be nice to have a podcast where you could bring. Today, Dana Carvey's going to join us, Today it'll be. We had Bryan Cranston on. I'm like, yeah, I don't get Bryan Cranston, but I do the best I can. We still have great guests. We get Heisman winners and stuff. All right, it is time for our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. And Hesser and Kipke, of course, a Gainesville law firm that specializes in the areas of family law and workers' compensation. If you're a loyal listener of this show, you know who we are by now. If not, Google the firm, check out the reviews, and hear what our clients have to say. Ken and Jennifer can be reached 24/7 via call or text at 352-339-9920. 352-339-9920. Make sure I say that again since I screwed it up the first time. Hesser and Kipke. We appreciate our good friends there. They will be involved in the golf tournament. By the way, just to let everybody know, I did make the announcement earlier this week. We are having a golf tournament. It's like that Norm Macdonald joke where he's talking about, you should really be afraid of Germany. I don't know if you're any of your history buffs, but there was this World War. He goes, Germany went to war. They chose their opponent, the world. I love that joke. He goes, but the best part of that joke is when he says, "Hey, and you'd think it would have been a blowout, but it was close." That's funny. That to me is funny. I love Norm Macdonald. I miss him. Anyway, there was a point I was going to make, and again, totally forgot what it was. All right, Hesser and Kipke, 3 things. Let's get to number 1, which is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN as well. We've had him on the show. You've seen him. He had his grades for all the transfer quarterbacks, and it was really interesting to me because I'll say, hey, let me see where he put Graham Mertz. He put him very up high. He gave him an A-, here's the thing that is amazing to me. If you had told me last year at this time that Graham Mertz the following year was going to have an A- season as a Florida quarterback, I would have gone, are they in the playoffs? Are they in the playoffs? If he's an A-, that to me was a thing I didn't like about what this roster looked like. No, he was an A-. I would give you maybe a B+ at the worst, though. Trouble was people around him didn't play as well. Not all, some of them did. But anyway, Emory Jones, by the way, got a C, and I think that grade was high for him. Emory Jones, and I think he declared for the draft. Did I see that? I think he did. Anyway, he's not going to be at Cincinnati next year. I'm sure nobody cares there. But anyway, so those were some of the grades. And I wanted to see where he gave Devin Leary. I thought he gave him way too good of a grade. I think he gave him a B-. I just didn't think much of him as quarterback. But that's my opinion. And this is his opinion. But it's a good read if you love college football on ESPN. Now I remember what I forgot. The golf tournament. Yes, it was close. We have to go way back to the joke I was telling. It was very close. In fact, at one point, I didn't think we were going to have the tournament. A lot of reasons. Health, the golf situation in this community, which is not good, as you know. But I got some assurances. I got some, and I'll be all right. Just got to. Just got to get everything together. And the people I've already started calling, they go, we're in. Yeah, we'll have Decana, we'll have an ice cream truck there. Yeah. Giving away free ice cream all day. Yeah. We'll do what we can. Ravel, of course, sets up all the tents for the Gator games. They're going to do, they aren't sure what they're going to do. They're going to do something. Everybody I've talked to already, Adam's Rib, in. Leonardo's, in. Of course, Titan MRI, in. Title sponsor. Leonardo's and Titan MRI are the title sponsors. Meldon Law, I don't even have to call them, but I will soon, and they'll be in, I promise. So we're having our tournament May 11th. I know it's a day before Mother's Day. That may eliminate some of you, but we'll fill up pretty quickly, I can tell you that. We are going to keep it, the field reasonable. I'm thinking 116 because of a cart situation. However, if you own a cart and you want to get 2 players in the tournament, I'll give you a huge discount. Let's just put it that way. All right. And you're going to be hearing about the golf tournament for the next 3 months, but I'll try not to bore you with it. I'll just give you the interesting stuff. If I have any interesting stuff. All right, let's get to number 2 on Hesser and Kipke's 3 things. And that is Ohio State. And this was the weirdest thing. I'm driving home yesterday from wherever I went, store or whatever. And I'm listening. For some reason, I had it on the Big Ten radio network. And there's somebody giving a press conference at Ohio State. And he is the new something. And I'm like, did they fire Ryan Day? Did Ryan Day quit? What? I forgot that Gene Smith had decided to step down. And they were hiring Ross Bjork. Now, I was like, really? Okay. Yeah, that seems like an odd hire. And then I read Pat Forty's column on it at SI.com. And, he said all the things I thought. You basically hired a guy who gave Jimbo Fisher this massive extension. Let's try to put 2 words together. And then had to fire him and had to pay it off. You were in the middle of the Hugh Freeze scandal at Ole Miss. I don't know, man. Go ahead, go to Ohio State. I don't care. Boy, they are just abandoning Texas A&M. Poor Mike Elko gets there, and right away he's like, okay, yeah, there's a culture problem here. We got to straighten some things out. But, at least I've got an AD who hired me. And what? He's leaving? Maybe that won't work out for him either. We'll see how it goes. And finally, number 3 on the Hesser and Kipke 3 things, brought to you by Hesser and Kipke. That is it. This was a stunner. I was looking at this and I said, what? They were talking on one of the stations say about how Gonzaga might not make the tournament this year. And I think Joe Lenardi's got it that way. Now, how I made a big fit last week about saying this team was in and this team was out and all this. It's just, it's fine for Joe Lenardi and people to do that. But they're not in and they're not out. Nobody's in, nobody's out. Okay? Even UConn is not in, technically. They could still lose every game going forward. So we'll see. But my point is we still want to look at these things. But, of course, they've got Gonzaga as the first 4 out right now. Can they have an NCAA tournament without Gonzaga? I mean, you got to have them, right? Feels like they've been in every one for my lifetime. But I think the first one they really went to was that one where they beat Florida. I probably should have looked that up, but I'm not sure. That one in 99, golly, that was a fun trip. That was one of my favorite trips ever. Seattle and then Phoenix. It was a blast. It was a blast. If only that ball gone in. Eddie Shannon let it go from almost half court, spun out of the rim. We'd have been there for another game. They'd have lost to UConn the next week anyway. But yeah, and so Lenardi has Florida as first 4 out. I don't think they're even that close, to be honest with you. I don't even think they're worth listing right now. And I'm not trying to be mean, okay? I just know that what their record is and that every team that they beat seems to find a way to lose. Now, the one team that is amazing, I'm sitting there watching FSU and Miami play and rooting for FSU. That is so hard to accept that I did that. But I did, because Florida needs some teams that they beat to win games. But still, they're going to have to win games. That's the bottom line. I've said that a million times. You know that. All right, that's going to do it for our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks, and we will do that today, and we will pull a winner. I did hear from Andy McIntosh, who got his prize package. Very happy to have it. We are going to pull a winner today. And, okay, Zach, so I've got 49 people that qualified. You give me a number between, you got to give me an even number between 2 and, would it be 50? No, we got to have more than that. 2 and 200. Yes. Give me an even number. I've got everybody assigned to a different number.
Between 2 and 200.
Yeah.
Let's go 88.
88. Okay, let me do the math here. Yeah, okay, there's 88. Yeah. Jonathan Zimmer is our winner. John Zimmer, or maybe just Jonathan, but Jonathan or John Zimmer is a winner of our contest. And send me your information, Jonathan, and I will get you a $25 gift certificate at Leonardo's. You got a choice. You can get a signed copy of my book. You can get a non-signed copy of my book, Game of My Life, or you can get a Bob Dooley Invitational hat from last year's tournament. There's still collector's items. Still got a couple of them left. We'll have a new hat this year. You can wait for this year's hat. It'll be a while before we get but he is our winner. And for those of you who like getting in the contest, we'll give you another chance to start qualifying for the next one, which will probably come up right around Valentine's Day, I would think, somewhere around there. Maybe we'll do it on Valentine's Day or that time. Florida, Missouri, Saturday. I'm not even going to give you a spread because, as you know, it's hard to find sometimes, but I don't care. Florida, Missouri, at Missouri, pick a winner, send it in. And you guys are great about sending these in the website, or to my email, patrickdooley54@gmail.com. Very simple. Send it, we'll get it, and you can qualify. Let's get to our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the weekend. And she did not do this on the weekend, but she was honored, during the week. It should be Gator of the Week. She did it on the weekend, but she's being honored during the week because they come out with these awards on Tuesday. And so the winner of our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the Week is Anya Pilgrim, freshman gymnastics. Her 39.525 score allowed her to become one of just 5, I think it is, freshmen at Florida to be freshman of the week in her first meet ever. And that's a good sign for Florida because they've got a really good team this year, but it could be better if they wanted it to be. And obviously, the Olympic year, people are going to go different things, do different things. Some are opting out, some are waiting, some are only going to do Olympic type events. We talked about that before, but she's obviously off to a great start. They need to keep her healthy, that's for sure. Anya Pilgrim. Certainly a great start to her career. Let's go to our Swamp Games of the weekend. Swamp Restaurant, where you can get all kinds of great stuff, all kinds of specials they have there. Sangria Saturdays, everything they've got. I know there's a lot of students going to be there all weekend watching these games, and you should be too because it is a great place to watch games. And let's get to the NFL game Saturday. Obviously, you start off with the Ravens game against Houston. That is a 4:30 game again on ESPN. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make my picks on all 4 of these games. I'm picking all the home teams. I cannot think of a reason not to pick the home teams. They've had a bye. They're more comfortable. They're a better team. I don't want all the home teams to win, but I'm going to pick them all. So Baltimore playing Houston, Baltimore, the home team, 4:30 ESPN, Green Bay at San Francisco, 8:15 on Fox. That'll be a fun game to watch, I think. That'll be an interesting thing on Saturday. This is, again, a good argument for the 2 TV system. I'm telling you guys. You can watch, because you're not going to not want to watch Green Bay, San Francisco, and you're not going to want to watch Florida, Missouri. They're all at the same time. You got to have 2 TV. See, you watch them both. Watch that one and watch that one. That's my plan. I will show you my 2 TV setup. You want to see it? There you go. Yeah. Okay. There's my 2 TV setup. I know it's not elaborate, but it works for me. All right, and then on Sunday, you've got Green Bay and San Francisco is the 3:00 NBC game, and then at 6:30 on CBS, Kansas City at Buffalo. 2 great games that day. Hopefully, I hope the games live up. Remember we had that weekend, was it last year, where we had like 3 of the 4 games at this point in the season were 3 of the 4 best games we'd ever seen. Hopefully we can have that kind of weekend again. And then again, Florida is playing Missouri at 8:00 on Saturday. It's on the U, ESPN U. So a lot of stuff to be watching this weekend. Those are our swamp games of the weekend. Let's get to this, that, and the other, brought to you by our good friends at Ballyhoo Grill, good friends at Darshak Howe Insurance, and our good friends at Ironwood Golf Course, where the Bob Dooley Invitational, the 29th, will be played. I did do the drive of despair today, going out to see my dermatologist, which is you go by Meadowbrook and West End on your way there. And it is so depressing. Still, it still depresses me to this day. Every time I see these golf courses that are just grown over. And anyway, I like golf. We don't have any golf courses here. We got 3 total. But one of them is Ironwood, and that's where the Bob Dooley will be. We played at every one except UF, and we were almost going to UF this year. It's kind of complicated. Well, it's not that complicated. You can't serve liquor there, and there are things that are we like to serve margaritas there. But we would have looked past that. There was some other things, nothing to do with UF. UF's a great course. I probably would have loved to have done it, but it's just wasn't going to work out. And it's a me thing, okay? Certainly Scott Hampton is one of the best guys I know, and all the people out there, and they contribute so much. So it's not a them thing. It's a me thing. It's a we thing. Did any of that make any sense? I don't know. Let's get to this, that, and the other. This is as you know, we just talked about it. Tampa Bay playing against Detroit on what day is that? Oh yeah, on Sunday. So that is our again. I said 3:00 NBC Sunday. So Tampa Bay playing Detroit on Sunday. That's that is Todd Bowles was asked about it. How are you going to deal? What have you done to deal with the weather? The other, of course, is that Todd Bowles says it's a dome. We're okay. We may have to spend 2 minutes walking from the bus to the stadium, but we're all right. Look, people ask dumb questions at press conferences. They get caught up in things. They feel nervous. They want to ask. I think I've told this story. The single dumbest question I ever asked was to Jack Nicklaus. He, at least this reporter, I think it was a female. I didn't see her. At least asked a question of Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles and Jack Nicklaus are on different levels. And that made my question even stupider, even dumber than hers. And I asked him, Jack, I saw you as you were walking off the first green going over to look at the 9th hole, and that's where Tiger was walking up. Were you looking to see how he was doing, how he was playing? He goes, no, I was looking at the pin placement. Dummy. He didn't say dummy, but I went, whoa. I was like that meme of Homer Simpson falling back into the shrubs. That was the single dumbest question I ever asked anybody. So can never get to that level. Okay. I've made it a new level. That's this, that, and the other, brought to you by Ironwood, by I almost said by Ironwood and by Meadowbrook, and I had that golf thing in my head, but by Ironwood, by Darshak Al Insurance, and by Ballyhoo Grill. I'm sure I'll be eating this weekend some point. Don't know what day. Could be tomorrow. You never know. You want to come by and see me. Finally, let's get to our Pat Dooley story time, which is brought to you as always by our good friends at Eastlake Pediatrics. Mike Jordan and the crew do a great job down there in Pinellas County. We appreciate them being a great sponsor for a year and a half. We really appreciate them. This story is an interesting one, I think. I just kind of give you, sometimes I like to pull the curtain back about how we do our jobs and how we used to do our jobs. So this is back in the day of Urban Meyer, late Urban Meyer, maybe. But I get a call from a guy who wants the running back coach job. And he thinks he's qualified, and he believes he would do good at it. He's been at Florida before. You guys can figure out who it is. I'm not going to say his name out loud, but you can figure out who it was. So he wanted the running backs coach job. And I said, hey, I'll call Urban and see what I can do for you. So I called Urban. And Urban and I had a remarkable relationship. He would pick up the phone whenever I called. He was great. And he would be pretty honest with me. I hate to say it. You guys want to rip him and everything. But so he tells me, no, I can't do that. I just hired a coach. I just hired Brian White. I go, Brian White? I don't know who Brian White is. I go look him up. Found out, I think he was a Cal at the time. So I went and looked him up and found out who he was, wrote the story, put it up on the web. Immediately, phone rings. I said, oh, this is Urban. He didn't want it. He didn't know we were on the record, but we're on the record. We're always on the record unless I say we're off the record. Pick it up. No, it's Florida. It's Steve McLean and the people at Florida going, can you please take that down? He has not been completely vetted yet. We have not hired him technically. So that's an incorrect story, but just please, we'll get it to you as soon as it's available. So I did. We took it down immediately, and we looked like the people who jumped the gun, but in truth, they kind of did. Well, no, not really. But anyway, yeah. So needless to say, when they did get the information and they did get it vetted and it was all clear and they were ready to release it, they did not give it to us. They just released it to everybody else. This is why we call them the firm. Anyway. All right. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate Zach for being on as well. We'll be back with you on Monday with Coach Spur. Until then, I am Pat Dooley saying I am deep, I am way back, and I am out of here.